Hey guys, Shawn Baker here. I want to have an opportunity to go through my own labs. I know a lot of people have gone through my labs. One of the things you learn when you train to be a physician is you have to put things into clinical context. You have to actually examine the patient before you react to lab values. I know the patient very well because it's me, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the labs that I have. I talked about these with Rob Wolf a little bit. Had a lot of people that have gone over these, particularly there have been some very politically motivated vegan folks that have gone over my labs with their particular interpretation. I'd like to have an opportunity to respond to some of that. I'll say from the outset, I don't really care what people eat. If you want to eat a vegan diet, that's fine. I have no problem with vegans. There are some, however, that are very misleading. They lie, they distort data, they cherry pick things. And I think they're doing damage to other people. You know, they're basically lying about a lot of things. So I may sort of reference a few of those guys, one in particular today. Today I'm going to talk about one of my lab tests, and I'll do a series on all the lab tests just to go over some of the science. It's a good opportunity because I have some outlying values, and I think that's important to put into clinical context. And I think it's very important to go through some of the science behind that stuff and how to really interpret this stuff in an intelligent, sophisticated manner, and not as some of the reactionary people do, that when they see one number outside of a normal range, they go off the handle and assume death and destruction. Okay. There's one guy, vegan guy. I don't know what's wrong with him. He looks real pasty and sickly. His name's like Mick or Mike Mick. I'm not sure. I'll just call him Prick the Vegan. And because he's a small guy, we'll call him Little Prick the Vegan. Okay, so Little Prick the Vegan went through and did my labs, and he had all these revelations how I'm going to die and stuff like that. And so let me put into context testosterone. Okay, so let's talk about testosterone. So my labs showed that the day I took it, my testosterone level was relatively low. I did repeat it about 3 days later, and it was a bit higher. It was still in the low normal range. Okay, one thing that shows you is how dynamic blood labs are. That's one of the points I've made for a long time. Your blood values can change day to day based on a whole bunch of things. One value by itself is meaningless. Regardless, my testosterone level was a little bit lower than some people might expect. Why would people expect my testosterone to be high? Because clinically I have excellent testosterone function, unlike Little Prick the Vegan, who for some reason looks like something I call facile. He looks like a flabby, androgynous sack of weakness. I would ask him to take his shirt off, but I'd have him refrain from doing that, as many people would throw up if they saw that. Okay, but anyway, let's talk more about testosterone. Okay, testosterone. What is the clinical purpose of testosterone? One of the clinical purposes of testosterone is for you to put on muscle, to stay lean. It helps with sexual performance, libido, and mental health. Now, let's put up a video from me from yesterday, deadlifting 505 pounds for 11 reps. And let's just watch this real quick. Okay, in this video here, I've got 505 pounds on a trap bar. I've got no belt on. I'm deadlifting it for 11 reps. There are very few human beings on earth that can do that. None, besides the ones that are over 50. Among the guys that are 50, I'm probably one of the few people on the entire planet that can do that because I have plenty of testosterone function. Unlike Mr. Little Prick the Vegan, who could never hope to do this in his wildest dreams. And so when we talk about clinical function, that's what counts. We don't care what your blood value is, okay? Because there's something else that's part of this equation. If we look at the receptor, okay, I'm going to introduce you a concept, okay? If clinical function is opening doors, and it works for all hormones, okay? We talk about insulin sensitivity. We talk about thyroid hormone sensitivity. If you have a door that needs to be opened, you need a key and a lock, okay? So we use the key as the analogy as a hormone, the lock as a receptor. If you want to open a bunch of doors and you have a bunch of keys, which are the hormones, but you only have a couple locks, you're not going to open very many doors. If you have a bunch of keys and a bunch of locks, you're going to open more doors. Now, what happens if the locks are all gummed up? Somebody stuck gum in the locks. It's going to be harder to open that door with the key. Gumming up the lock is the same as resistance. Okay, so when you clean the locks out, those locks are more sensitive. So we have something called androgen receptor sensitivity. That definitely exists, just like we have insulin receptor sensitivity, just like we have leptin hormone receptor sensitivity. There are receptor sensitivities for all hormones, okay? Those can be upregulated. In fact, there are drugs that regulate sex hormone receptors, things called selective androgen receptor modulators and selective estrogen receptor modulators. Those have been on the market for quite a while. In fact, a lot of guys are abusing selective androgen receptor modulators for performance. This is one of the things that these guys are doing now. And the reason that happens is because the receptor becomes more receptive or more sensitive to the amount of testosterone you have. Now, the question is there anything you can do naturally that might cause an upregulation in your androgen receptor? One of the things we know, there's a nice study on carnitine. They did a study where they showed that carnitine could increase androgen receptor sensitivity by about 15% in about 6 weeks. Now, where do you get carnitine? Guess what? Red meat. What do I eat? I eat tons of red meat. So I have plenty of carnitine exposure. Undoubtedly, that has upregulated my receptor. Another thing, lifting, training hard. Lifting will also upregulate the androgen receptor, both in sensitivity and density. So I have more androgen receptors due to that. And then finally, another thing that I do is basically intermittent fasting. Now, I don't talk about that, but I only eat once or twice a day. Again, the same effect happens. You upregulate the androgen receptor. You have more locks. You have more sensitive locks. Then you need less keys to open just as many doors. And so that's simply what's happening. And this is a well-known fact with low carbohydrate diets have been shown to show lower levels of testosterone. That's not debated. That's pretty well demonstrated in the literature. The question is, does it have a clinical effect? What you're seeing with me, because I'm an outlier, a big outlier, on an all red meat diet for a year and a half, training really well, breaking records, that when you see that at the extreme, you see what's happening. My androgen receptor sensitivity is high, thus I need relatively less androgen. And again, remember, it's dynamic. It can change over a period of days. All right. Okay, so how do we interpret this, in light of other people? Now, if you are, little prick the vegan who clinically appears to be suffering from androgen deficiency, or at least clinical deficiency in androgen, what I would do if I was him is perhaps get my androgen levels tested, and if they're either normal or high or even low, if they're low, you probably should supplement, I think. But if they're normal, you might have to do a biopsy. Now, to do a biopsy, it's a muscle biopsy. Now, provided you can actually find some muscle to biopsy on your particular body, you might be able to find out what your androgen receptor level is. And so that's how I would proceed if I were this guy, little prick the vegan. All right, so hopefully this sort of puts some light here on how we interpret labs for testosterone. Again, it depends on clinical function. If you're not having a medical problem or a clinical problem, the labs are irrelevant, okay? And that's important to know. And we'll talk about this, about some of the other things. Next time we'll talk probably about, my kidney function, okay? That's another nice one, because these sort of do-gooder vegans have interpreted my renal function labs, again, incorrectly, and we'll show that on the next video. Okay, you guys, thanks for watching. I look forward to all the vegan rage that's going to come here. It's entertaining. I generally ignore those. Well, I totally ignore those, but you can continue to do that. Waste your time typing to me. Type on my page. Waste your time, because it keeps you away from children who you're trying to manipulate, and take these people that you can mislead because they're gullible. Leave that stuff to me, because I don't care. Just spend all your energy typing your responses to me. I'm happy with that, because it's not going to make one difference to me or the people that follow me that have regained tremendous health by following a carnivorous diet. Okay, so for you guys that are nice vegans, eat your broccoli, eat your tofu, have fun. But the guys that are idiots, I don't care.